Would you steal medicine you can't afford for a dying family member? We love creating moral debates and would you rather questions just to give our opinion, like the trolley problem, for example. We always say we'd never do this or that because it's against our morals or principles. We always say we'd never do something until we're actually in that situation. I want to tell you a story about myself. I was extremely lucky to grow up with parents who provided me with everything. I never needed to go out of my way for anything, and morals and principles were the most important foundation of my education. It was my first semester in the US, my first Thanksgiving break. I decided to visit my friend in New York City. My train was back to Baltimore on Sunday at 6 a.m. So I told my friend, let's save the money, not take a hotel room. We could party all night and go straight to the train station. However, as you must all know, as a first-time tourist in New York, with all those awesome day activities, we were so tired by Saturday night that my friend went back to his dorm to sleep. So I had two options here. One, I could go back and sleep on his dorm floor. Two, I could find a train earlier. I chose neither of those two options. I lied to my friend and decided to challenge myself to survive a whole night in New York without a place to stay. At the time, it seemed like a pretty exciting idea, a bit of a thrill. After all, my freshman year, I was actively trying to do new things and experiment. I say goodbye to my friend, I lie to him, and I'm out there in New York with my suitcase trying to find things to do. My first thought was to go to the train station and wait there until the morning. However, they closed at 11 and kicked me out. That was the first unusual thing of the night, getting kicked out of a train station just for trying to stay. It was something I never experienced before, and strangely felt new and exciting. I'm walking out there in New York again, feeling homeless, which for this night I actually was. It starts raining and snowing, so I try to look for a restaurant that's open or a cafe. However, it was during COVID, so they were all either closed or allowed for takeout, and they were avoiding homeless people from staying in their shop. In this case, I was one of them. I'm walking around again in New York, and I see an open work office. I get in, and I'm begging the guy at the door to let me sit inside so I could charge my phone because my train ticket was on it, and I'm just begging him. I've never seen myself in a situation begging someone to just stay in their lobby. This didn't last too long because he called the security guard that kicked me out. It was an embarrassment I've never felt before. I decided to go back to the train station and try to find a secret entrance I can get in by. I find an open, like a weak fence. I kick it, break it, and just get in. It was so big and empty inside, and instead of feeling guilty for what I did, I felt as if I made it. How insane do you think I am for feeling a sense of relief and success when I did that? That feeling didn't last too long, as I saw a bunch of police officers running towards me and kicking me out. That's when I realized I did something wrong. Not when I broke in the place, no, just when they kicked me out. That's when my mind started thinking about all the ways I'm not that different from all the homeless people that I usually look at with a side eye and I feel like I'm superior. And because of that thought, I decided to go back to the subway station, find an open area where some homeless people were sitting, and sit with them and make conversation. Again, freshman year, trying new things, going crazy. That didn't last too long because after 5 minutes, two of them started putting their hands on my luggage, so I just left. It was 4 a.m. and the train station opened at 5. There was an open restaurant on the second floor of a hotel. The problem was, I had to be part of the hotel to get in. I remember that the night before, I had bought a nice jacket because it was Black Friday. I opened my suitcase, wear it, try to look as presentable as possible so I could pretend I'm getting into the hotel. I get in, get to the elevator, and make it to the second floor. During this whole night's experiment, what I wanted to do ended up feeling too real. And at the end, I felt as if I made it. In reality, I lied a lot, broke into a train station, hung out with homeless people in the subway, and broke hotel laws. All of that from someone who, ironically, prided himself on his high moral standards and dignity. I went ahead and abandoned them in the span of 7 hours. Now, why am I telling you guys this story? First, I think it's a cool story. Second, the thing is, this story is not just random. It's part of a bigger concept that researchers and psychologists have already explored: moral relativism. I started reading and learning about it after what happened with me, because I really believe we all know what it is, but we don't think about it enough in our daily lives. Studies like the Milgram experiment or the Stanford prison experiment show us how our senses of right and wrong change drastically when we're under pressure or in unfamiliar situations. Festinger's theory of cognitive dissonance shows us how our beliefs and actions don't align when we're under pressure or when we're somewhere we don't know how to react to. There are so many studies that show that what we do really depends on where we are, who we're with, how we're feeling. It's well documented that morality isn't black and white when life puts us to the test. And the college years are so transformative for all of us. When life throws us into a pit full of new experiences, challenges, perspectives, it leads to a lot of introspections and moral crises. When we're far from our family, comfort zone, and the social construct we're used to, that's when we start thinking about identity, politics, ethics, purpose. What was once clear in terms of right and wrong becomes blurry in the middle of all those diverse people and ideas. As the French-Lebanese author Amin Maalouf once said, c'est notre regard qui emprisonne les autres dans leur plus étroite appartenance, et c'est notre regard aussi qui peut les libérer. In English, it's the way we look at other people that imprisons them in their most narrow identities, and it's also our perspective that can liberate them. I love this quote because we really judge people based on our limited views or the labels society gives them. Basically our own perspective. And we fail to get to know their real complexities. That's why, starting with that story and in college, I try to keep the idea of moral relativism in the back of my mind. Everything I encountered, every person, every belief, every action I initially assumed was wrong, I try to understand from the perspective of the person who was doing it. My friends hated me for it because sometimes I didn't defend them and I would side with the other person, but I was lost at times, but no big deal. It wasn't only a shift in my thoughts, but my actions too. I didn't try to look for the people who were the most similar to me, the people who came from the same country, but the people who were different. I invite you to try it and see where it takes you. If you're on one end of the political spectrum, spend time with someone on the other. If you're financially privileged, spend time with someone who isn't. If you're from a country in war, spend time with someone from a country battling yours. If you're pro-life, spend time with a woman who had an abortion. There's so much to learn about the minds and morals of others. I'm grateful for my opportunity to tell my story when I first started exploring this concept. In just one night, I did so many things I never imagined I would. And I bet all of you have been in situations where your actions and beliefs didn't align. Now, this is just a silly story I like to tell my friends, but take that to an extreme and think about Armenians after the genocide, Jews after the Holocaust, Kurds, Uyghurs in China, Tutsis in Rwanda, Muslims in Bosnia, Palestinian civilians today. For them, it's not just a silly challenge they gave themselves. It's a lifetime of suffering and resilience that shapes who they are today and the actions they take. For those who know me, I'm extremely lucky to be born after all the wars in Lebanon. It's easy for me to say I would never when it comes to violence. But what if I was born during the war or I was there right now? Do you really believe I would be on the other side of the globe with this kind of education, just saying stop the violence? I want to remind you that the terrorists of the Israelis are the freedom fighters of the Palestinians, and that Nelson Mandela was on the US terror watch list until 2008. So at least in your daily personal lives, don't rush and put people on your villain list before you truly understand the complexities of their identities and experiences. Thank you.